Good afternoon again. Welcome. Last week we were talking about metta bhavana, or the development of loving kindness, and we mentioned that the best time to do this particular practice is against the background of positive feeling, joy or happiness, or feeling of lightness, and that if you do this, it integrates the positive emotions, the most positive emotions, into your spiritual practice. And we suggested that a combination of these two practices, mindfulness, the ability to develop into a still watching center, and the ability to gradually learn to have positive feeling towards yourself and others, including even people who normally we find unpleasant, that a combination of both of these practices is the most important part of Buddhist meditation. So over the last 4 or 5 weeks, we have gone through these particular practices. We have talked about how to do them. And today I'd like to talk briefly about the changes that can take place as a result of these particular practices taught by the Buddha so long ago. The Buddha's understanding of the human situation is that it is we ourselves who make the world in which we live. By that I do not mean that the external world does not exist. Of course it does exist. But how we interpret it and relate to it, and therefore react to it and feel about it, that comes very much from our minds. The person who has a very suspicious disposition will see plots and enemies everywhere. The most harmless behavior will be interpreted as threatening and sinister. The person who has a rosy outlook on life may not even see threats and dangers where they are present. The purpose of the whole of the Buddhist path is, as the Buddha said, yatha bhuta jnana dassana. Yatha bhuta jnana dassana. To develop a knowledge and vision of things as they are. Not as we would like them to be, not as we hoped they were, but as they actually are. And then when we're in that position, or the more we're in that position, the more likely we will be able to make intelligent decisions about how to relate to the external world, to other people, to various situations. As it is, so often we relate in irrational, unhelpful, unskillful ways. One example would be that a person finds that they have little opportunities in life. So they take drugs, or they indulge in alcohol. In a sense, one can understand out of frustration and why a person does that, but it is simply not a rational way of dealing with a difficult situation. In other cases, people have opportunities, but they are so impatient for them that they spoil them and prevent them from coming into a reality. The purpose of Buddhist mind training is yatha bhuta jnana dassana, to have a knowledge and vision of things as they really are, so that we can make more intelligent choices about how to relate to other people and to situations that we confront in our life. So how do these two practices do that? So the first practice we've talked about is mindfulness or awareness. The ability to notice and be detached from various experiences that we have. Primarily thoughts and emotions, but feelings also. If we're able to increasingly develop an awareness of these experiences as they arise, and have a gap between them, a space before we react, then we will relate to reality entirely differently. Within that space, we will have the possibility of choosing. And where there's that element of choice, there's the possibility of acting freely rather than reacting in a conditioned or even a determined manner. So, sometimes we find ourselves provoked. The provocation may be a sudden and dramatic one, or it may be somebody hassling us over a period of time, persistently over a period of time, so we gradually get angrier and angrier and angrier, and then we explode. Either way, this may not be the best way to relate to a situation. But often we have no choice. The anger arises before we even know it, and we've reacted to it, once again, before we even know it. The reaction may be conducive. It may be that we overdo it or we lose control, and later we regret it, perhaps even severely regret it. And when these things happen, we say things to ourselves like, I was not myself, or I was out of myself with anger. And in a sense, that's exactly what has happened. We are not ourselves. We are out of ourselves, or in its simplest terms, we were not mindful and aware. If we are mindful and aware, and a sudden situation arises whereby normally we'd react with anger, chances are we have got more of an ability to hold back. So what you find as you go through life, if you're doing this practice, is that you won't be provoked so easily. And where you are provoked, you won't get so angry. And when you get angry, your anger will not last so long. And after the anger is gone, it will not leave as much angry residue. Now, of course, not all the situations in life that we encounter are negative ones like that. Sometimes positive ones create problems for us too. Temptations, the possibility of some extremely pleasant sensuous experience can sometimes lead us to make some very bad decisions, which we regret later. We end up hurting somebody or embarrassing ourselves. The same thing applies. If we can watch the experience of temptation, the possibility of some very strong sensual experience arising, and we can observe it, stand back and watch, so that there is that space there. There, within that space, is the possibility of cautious, careful decisions arising, consideration of the consequences of what we may be tempted about to do. And that may very well allow us to step back and make a more rational, a more skillful decision. So the possibilities of this are enormous. And then apart from distinct and individual experiences, there are other experiences that we have which sort of form the background of our life. So we may be irritated from time to time, but we're not irritated all of the time. We may be have pleasurable experiences from time to time, but we don't have them all the time. But it may be that beyond our ordinary discrete experiences, we have some background, more subtle, less notable experiences, like just a general frustration, a general feeling of dissatisfaction, a vague feeling of incompleteness. It very often happens when if that experience is there, we're reacting to it and acting upon it and making decisions because of it without really being aware that that feeling is there. Once again, the practice of simply sitting, watching, and being aware of what is may bring these things to our attention. And then we can start exploring them. And when we start exploring them, it may be that we're able to come to some helpful conclusion about them and end up resolving them. So you might say that the practice of mindfulness is well illustrated for us on the face of a Buddha statue. When you see a statue of the Buddha, if it is a really beautiful one, generally the face is very radiant and calm. Very rarely are the eyes open. The eyes are half open. And there's a very gentle smile on the face. And what the artist has tried to do, and if the artist has succeeded, he has given the impression of a calm, detached, peaceful watching of what is happening without getting involved. Being able to be a still center in the midst of perhaps a great deal of turmoil. As it says in the Christian tradition, being in the world but not necessarily of the world. Or to use the metaphor in Buddhism, like being a lotus hovering above the mud and the water of a swamp. If we're able to live like this, and it is certainly possible with regular meditation practice, then the whole nature of our experience changes. From one of turmoil and chaos and distress and frustration to peace, tranquility, and common sense. Then, when we're talking about metta bhavana, the development of loving kindness, what effect can this have upon our lives? According to the Buddha, we all have a very strong capacity for kindness. And my personal feeling is that it is quite a natural, perhaps even an innate quality. However, when we look around in the world, when we read the newspapers, even the local newspapers, sometimes we hear of people doing some very cruel things, even things that are cruel towards themselves. And it may be that even from time to time we have done that. Or somebody has done that to us. So what is happening? Under normal circumstances, I think that it is more likely that we are likely to act in a good and a wholesome and a friendly and a kindly manner. Unfortunately, situations are such that they often provoke in us. Our desires are such that we often ignore or even find that we are incapable of feeling like that because other qualities have come into play. Jealousy, egoism, self-interest, greed, impatience, anger, And these qualities smother, hinder, hold back, or even completely inundate the innate capacity to be kindly and good. With the practice of mindfulness and awareness, we start to come to terms with, notice these negative qualities, and they start to weaken. Often they start to weaken simply because they have been exposed to the light of awareness. But it is not enough that we simply remove the stifling negative qualities. We also have to remind, as it were, we also have to remind our heart to express kindness. We have to allow it to have the exercise to make these qualities strong. And the thing that does that better than anything else is the practice of metta bhavana, the development of loving kindness. So, we start with the practice that we have talked about. Blessing ourselves, those we love, paying attention to neutral persons, including them within the ambit of our kindness, and even welcoming in people that normally we would not, because they have hurt us or threatened us or whatever. And then from time to time thinking about those who are in distress, or thinking about all beings in general. Now, some people hear about the practice of loving kindness and they think that this is really nothing more than a feel-good practice, nothing more than a shallow sentiment. Indeed, some people do this practice, they do this meditation in exactly that way. But my own experience and the experience of many other meditators is that if you do this in the right way, then it certainly does have a very potent and powerful effect upon opening up the heart and allowing the positive emotions to emerge. So somebody has said to me just recently, if I think about somebody that I don't like, and in my mind I bless them, I say, may you be well and happy. I may say that, but I may actually be feeling, may he be sick and unhappy. In other words, what I am saying to myself may not correspond to how I really feel. This observation was made to me just the other day. And this person said to me, what do I do in a case like that? How can I change if that is the case? And this is my answer. If you're sitting down, you're thinking of a neutral person, or somebody you don't like, and if you say, may you be well and happy, may you be peaceful and calm, and so on. If you say those words, even if that's not what you're feeling at that time, the mere fact that you're saying that shows that you wish to change, shows that you are committed to trying to come to terms with those negative feelings. And if that desire is there, if that commitment is there, in time, the feelings will correspond with the intention. So in actual fact, this practice always works. And the results of this are very, very positive. Spite, envy, minor irritation, the desire for revenge, to want to get back to people, get back at people, always wanting to be one better, the tendency to put people down, to snigger about them, to make harsh judgments about them, bit by bit, all this gradually changes. And what is the result of that? Well, the results are many and very positive. One thing is that we increasingly wing our way through life, rather than having to take time out to get back at people or outmaneuver them. We wing our way through life. We have better relationships. We have more friends. People like us more. They relate to us more constructively and more positively. And just as important, all of these negative qualities simply impart a negative feeling to us. It is true that there is a sort of a perverse pleasure in getting revenge towards somebody, or feeling spite, or getting back at them. There is a sort of a perverse pleasure, but it is often mixed with some unpleasant feeling also. And it has even been pointed out in that it is true that people who have sustained and prolonged negative feelings towards themselves or others, very frequently it comes to express itself on their face, on their countenance. It may even be, it has been suggested, that over prolonged periods it actually may cause diseases in people, which I think is very possible. Whereas when all of these negative feelings are gone, and the ability to be kindly, to look upon persons with kindness, even while seeing their shortcomings, even while knowing that they may not be perfect, the ability to forgive, being happy in letting them have their own way where it's appropriate, reaching out and being helpful. One of the main things that comes from this is you feel happier. Increasingly, happiness, joy, and felicity becomes a part of your experience. The very thing that at the bottom of it we all want, that we're all questing for. We think by doing all of these other things, eliminating our enemies, striving to be better than others, either by doing dastardly things to climb above them, or preventing them from getting up to our level, whatever it happens to be, we think that that's what will make us happy, whereas in actual fact it makes us ugly and unhappy. So, the two main advantages of doing Metta Bhavana is that our relationships with others become smoother, and that generally we become happier. Knowledge, clarity, insight on the one hand, kindness, open-heartedness, and happiness on the other. One, a passive type of, one is the happiness of the absence of the negative, and the other is the happiness of the presence of the positive. And this is the very thing that all of us are searching for. Now the question is, how long does it take? How long will we have to meditate for to see these qualities start to become a part of our experience? You cannot say. Because meditation is not like a race where we're all starting from the same position. Indeed, we're all starting from a different position. Our personality, Our personal histories are all different. We have different mindsets, different traits and tendencies. But one thing is for sure, doing meditation regularly, committing oneself to it sincerely, and in time, these changes will come. In time, we will start to experience the insight, the joy and the happiness that is usually only the privilege of the enlightened ones. I'd like to thank you all for listening to me over the last few weeks. I hope that what I've said may be of help to you, that it has helped you to better understand Buddhist meditation. And I certainly hope that you will consider what we have said and take up the practice. And when you do, I can guarantee you that it will change your life. Thank you very much.